Hi there, welcome to Gay Art Class. If you're new here, I'm about to teach you something. And since I'm a fruit, and you might be too, let's paint another. Did you get my joke there? Okay, let's add this to my art. This is called my art door. Balsamic vinegar. Today I'm going to teach you how to paint this perfect little blueberry on paper, Arches oil. But first, I'm going to put on some gloves and clean up my mess. In my last video, I talked about art safety and how oil paints can be toxic. I got a lot of mixed reviews on that information. I'm no expert. I'm just trying to have you live a better, safer life. So as far as toxicity goes, it's primarily in your thinners, so you just want to make sure that you have good ventilation. Like I always have a fan on and I crack a window. And then as far as the colors go, a lot of people were saying, oh, nowadays paint isn't that toxic. That's true, especially in the cheaper brands. But if you're painting with any cadmiums or any cobalts, those can be pretty toxic. It is mainly when you eat it or ingest it of some sort, but it getting on your skin, it can absorb, and over time, a long time, it's just not great for you. I paint with gloves because oil is just, it's oil. It's like hard to get off. I also like to touch my paintings, and I just don't want that really on my fingers. When I paint in gouache, acrylic, or watercolor, I don't usually wear gloves. Since we're painting a blueberry, I loaded up on my cobalt, my ultramarine, still have this little blue, and I've got my white. I'm gonna pull in some complementary colors, kind of like I did on my mustache, orange and blue. Starting with a loose sketch, I just like to get my image on the paper. Again, I'm gonna make this one float. I don't use any mediums except Gamsol. I have a dirty one and a clean one if I need to thin my paint. Another thing I recommend is starting with your bigger brushes, working smaller. You never want to start with a small brush because the details don't matter in the beginning. First, you have to block it in. Squint your eyes and get the shapes of value there. Starting with a thinned out ultramarine, bit of cobalt, I'm going to try and find the local color. It's going to be slightly lighter than my darkest darks, so we'll test that out. Okay, so that's too blue. We need some orange. See how much better that color is since I warmed it up? So now I'm gonna start blocking in. So I've got my overall shape worked in. I'm gonna remove some light for the reflected light, which is my favorite part. So right now I'm placing in my darkest values in the center of the fruit, and I'm gonna tell you to go to part 2. Okay, welcome to part 2 because my time management is shite. Right now, placing in these darkest values. Generally speaking, you wanna place your dark values first, and then build up from there. Remember, you want to put your lean oil paint down first and slowly get thicker. Since I'm painting on oil paper, the paint sits on top of it. So I still have control on lifting. So instead of adding lighter values on top of this, I'm just gonna lift because I like this value of my previous lift. So I just dropped my paper towel, but I'm gonna lift. So now is a point when I thin my paint just a little bit. And for color-wise, I'm using Cad Red in my blue because it's gonna neutralize it. But when I want really clean lines, thinner paint is gonna do that for me. Also, do yourself a favor and don't put out as much paint as I did when you're just painting a blueberry. Anyway, moving on to the lighter values, I'm pretty happy with my darkest darks. So now we're gonna bring these little flaps forward by adding light, and then I'm gonna add in this drop shadow. Placing in these lighter values really adds a lot of dimension to the form of this blueberry. This is where the illusion that it's real comes from. Paying attention to all these subtle little value shifts. So I just had to pull in some alizarin crimson to really darken this shadow because the lighting wasn't working for me. So now I'm really working on my highlights. I already have this nice pile of muted blue, so I'm pulling it into there and mixing a little bit. This is really gonna add a lot of depth to this, but you wanna save this for the last like 5%, and then your true highlights will be like the final 1%. One thing I cannot stress enough is stepping away from your painting and viewing it from further away. It's gonna give you a good understanding of if it's working. So I'm pretty happy with this. Now let's add the shadow that will give it the illusion that it's floating. So I throw down a little bit of color, clean my brush, get some clean Gamsol, and then I'm gonna spread that out softly. Make it really, really subtle. All right, I'm calling this one done, and I'm gonna add it to the other fruit. For anyone wondering, I painted this in about 50 minutes. Bye!